Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
And I love a church joke, don't you? A sermon joke? I actually have two for you today. They're both short. So if the first one isn't good enough, I've got another one. We'll see. Saw this online. In my town, there's a Journey church, a Journey dog rescue, and a Journey cemetery. And they all use the same tagline: "We have a spot for you." Do I need another one? All right, this is a quick one. I think a garage sale is a great idea to help manage my junk, right? But if I sell my garage, where am I going to put all my junk? Yeah, all right, that's enough. Let's get to it. So we're talking about Touchstone 2025, a hero's journey, answering the call. Last week, Reverend Stacy and I kind of set this up. We explained that this idea of the heroic journey, it really came to us from Joseph Campbell, from a book from the 1940s called A Hero with a Thousand Faces, that there is a monomyth that shows up in all cultures. It shows up in all the great stories of an individual, can be a man or a woman, who has felt the call to some greater life, and they've answered that call, and they faced all sorts of trials on a journey of transformation. And they return to the place they started, but they are changed. They have grown, they've expanded, they have been healed and maybe wounded. And they bring a gift, a boon, an elixir, a treasure that is not just for them, but something they share with the community. Years ago, George Lucas in the 1970s was writing Star Wars. And he said that he got the concept for all 9 of those major movies. That was one story for him. And it wasn't making sense. He couldn't pull it together. It was so big, he didn't know what to do with it. And somebody said, you should read the Joseph Campbell book, Hero with a Thousand Faces. And he's like, oh, there are 12 stages. I'm going to write this story in those 12 stages of the hero's journey. And you can see what an impact, why it was so resonant. Why does it resonate with people generation after generation of all ages and all diverse ways that people are? It's because it's the story of our own soul. It's the story of our own healing. It's the story of our life. As last week, our talk title was, it's the story of us. And what we talk about, and I love too about this hero's journey idea, the monomyth, this idea of using these archetypal ways of understanding how life happens with us and to us and for us and from us, is that you can approach it from a purely psychological standpoint, and it works. Or you can approach it from a spiritual standpoint, and it works. It helps us to understand that we're a part of something larger than we have yet experienced. So today, I'm starting at the beginning. The call to adventure. This is the first stage of 12 in the hero's journey, or the heroic journey. I'm going to speak a quote, and we'll see if anybody knows who said it. Life is either a daring adventure, or it is nothing. Does anybody know who that is? Who? Helen Keller. Somebody got it. That's right. Helen Keller. Yeah, you get a prize when you leave. Get an affirmation card. Helen Keller. Do you know the story of Helen Keller, right? She wasn't born deaf and blind, but she had an illness as a baby, and so didn't speak or hear or see. And then Annie Sullivan was the teacher, turned into a play called The Miracle Worker that then became a movie and won awards everywhere it was on. It's just an amazing story. And so this person, this little girl who had no access to those amazing senses, learned to speak and to read and to write, and she wrote a book. That line is from her first book that she wrote. Now that's a heroic journey. And she understood that the circumstances that would keep us small are not there to keep us small. That they're there so that we may grow through those trials and those challenges. I mean, most of you here, I'm guessing that you can see and hear. because you're here and you're looking at me, and you have much more access in some ways than she did to the potential of what life can bring. And look at what she accomplished, because she knew this. Life is a daring adventure, or it's nothing. And here's the thing, I'm talking about calling today. That in all of these great stories, there is a call to a bigger life. Luke Skywalker got the call. Harry Potter got the call. Dorothy of Wizard of Oz got the call. Moana, I was thinking about Moana. If you haven't seen that one, I love that Disney is still telling these stories over and over again for new generations. And now they're beginning to reflect the diversity of our world in a beautiful way. You know, Moana was a Polynesian girl, and she received the call as a baby. The ocean called to her to find the lost heart of Tahiti. I can't remember the name of the goddess, but to return the heart to the goddess and end the drought. But her father was afraid of the ocean, so he kept her from the ocean. But that call kept coming to her. And it's so cute in the animation. The little waves would come tap her on the shoulder when she was near. They would splash over. There was just something in her that the ocean needed and was asking for it. And she felt something in her was being asked for. And boy, did she have some trials. If you haven't seen that movie, owe it to yourself. I haven't seen Moana 2 yet, but the first one is great. And that's the hero's journey right there. You can see all of these stages. Or pick whatever one you want to, but watch one of these. I haven't even talked about the Lord of the Rings yet, but I mean, come on. They're epic themes of our ability to overcome and to become more than we know we are to be. That's what it is. You are more than you yet have experienced yourself to be, and you're being called to that greater life right now. And as the singers just sang, sometimes it comes as the voice of God. As Ben said, he felt that call to step into giving and receiving in his financial world in a deeper way. He felt it, not with audible words, but you just that sense of something was calling to you, right, Ben? Yeah, and he answered the call. Well, years ago, I attended the Agape International Spiritual Center in Los Angeles. They used to do a conference called Revelations, and my dear friend Maggie Cole, who's going to be on this stage with me in 2 weeks, she's giving the Sunday message. She loved that conference. I went with her a few times, but I think it was my first time to go, and there was a speaker who spoke about calling. And she's become a friend of mine. Her name is Reverend Sheila McKeithen. She is the president of UFBL, United Federation for Better Living. It's the predominantly African-American New Thought movement. There are churches all over the U.S., and her church is in Kingston, Jamaica. Well, she was a assistant attorney general in Florida who got a fatal diagnosis. And that was her calling to step into a different life. And she found these principles that we teach here in Unity in the New Thought movement and began to hold a different possibility. And she was healed of that illness. And she felt this call then to step into what we call ministry, service, and leadership. We had her here 3 years ago during my sabbatical when we had no air conditioning. That was the summer that we had a $500,000 air conditioning failure in this place. Boy, we were all called to something greater then, weren't we? And you all stepped up to it, and we got through that. Well, Sheila said in that conference all those years ago, probably around, 2004, something like that, in Los Angeles, she said, everybody has a call on their life. And then she referenced the Hebrew scriptures, and she said, some of you have a David call, and some of you have a Moses call. The David call is that the high priest Samuel comes to your house and anoints you with oil and says, you are to be the next king of Israel. There it is. And then some of you get a Moses call where God says to Moses, I need you to go talk to Pharaoh for me. More will be revealed. Most of us have a Moses call. Do this thing. And then that'll lead to this thing. In my recovery work, I found, somebody gave me this metaphor years ago. It's like we're in a giant attic that is completely pitch dark, and it's filled with all these obstacles and things, and you're given a flashlight that illuminates exactly 18 inches. Enough to take a step. Everyone has a call on their life. I didn't know mine would get me up here, but it did. Yours may not get you into any place where you have to get a new title before your name. But there is a greater you that is asking for the opportunity to know itself and to express itself. And here's a clue about how that's happening right now. What's your biggest problem? You see, these stories all have huge problems. Many times, the call is a crisis in the community, a crisis in our own lives, that it's something is just saying more. I need more of you. And Mary Morrissey is the one who gave me that language once. She said, I don't know what your biggest problem is, but I know you have one. And I know that that is the place where Spirit is seeking to be made more real in your life. So, the call is often disguised as a diagnosis, as a financial crisis, as a broken relationship. I'm pretty vulnerable and authentic about my stories, right? You all have heard my drunkalogs. You've heard all my I haven't talked about my love life too much, have I? Sometimes a call comes into our life as a handsome man or a beautiful woman or some fabulous non-binary pal. We are smitten. Something calls us forward. Has anybody else ever experienced the fact that it don't always turn out the way you hoped? Is it just me? Yeah. I've been working on a book, and people are asking about it. Well, I've got some resistance to that call, too, but I'm working with a wonderful developmental editor, Gina Carroll, no relation, although Jill calls her cousin. Gina is African-American, and Gina has been working with me for over a year now, a year and a half, I think, and we're working now on creating a book proposal. I've done the first draft of the book, and the working title, I've shared it before, it's There Is Only Love, How a Good Little Gay Boy Survived Christian Fundamentalism and Held On to God. So we'll see if that remains the title or not. But in working on the book proposal that she has me now doing, I would have to give the elevator pitch, just write 2 or 3 sentences so you can, in the time to write an elevator, you could say, this is what it's about. It needs to be compelling. And so I kind of wrote something based on that title. And Gina, last time we met, she said, I got an idea about this. What about this for a sentence? Michael Gott has everything but the one thing he wants. That's a compelling sentence. And because she's read my book, she knows. What I always wanted was that 40-year relationship with one person that I could just give all my love and be loved so beautifully. And it has not happened. And it's been a hard thing in my life. I keep trying. I keep getting the call. But for many of us, the disguise of the call, it's not actually in that person, is it? It's actually in something about us. Does anybody like breakup songs? I love them. I love them. So yesterday, Brandi Carlile is one of my favorite singer-songwriters, and she has a new album coming out in a few days. So I just told Alexa, don't answer. I just said, Alexa, just play Brandi Carlile. I was driving home from a memorial service in Dallas yesterday, and there's a song that came up that I'd loved. I knew it. It was one of her older songs, but I want to read you a lyric. It's the opening verse and the chorus. A love song was playing on the radio. It made me kind of sad because it made me think of you. And I wonder how you're doing, and I wish I didn't care. Because I gave you all I had and got the worst of you. By the way, I forgive you. After all, maybe I should thank you for giving me what I've found. Because without you around, I've been doing just fine. Except anytime I hear that song. I know, you should hear her sing it. It's so good. And so I have about 3 relationships I can relate to in that song alone. But the lyric there that I really want to draw our attention to, maybe I should thank you for everything I found. Because I will tell you, my journey of looking for Mr. Right has led me into the deepest work of self-discovery and healing childhood wounds of anything I've been on. It has opened me to look at my belief system around who I think I am and what I have to offer and what I think I deserve. Somebody said everyone pretty much gets the love they think they deserve. Ouch. Thank you very much. But I've seen that play out in my life again and again. I'm still listening for that call. Somebody new. I'll say more about it later down the road, but I'm also got a therapist. I have a leadership coach. I have, what else do I have? I have a new sponsor in my recovery work, and I have 4 prayer partners. I'm looking at me. That's what I'm doing, is I'm looking at me in this work. So, how many of you experience resistance when you think about a new expanded life? Well, if they're really good looking, you don't resist at all. You're like, come on. But the resistance isn't there because the resistance is in looking at us. So I mentioned resistance with in the Moana story, it was her father that kept her from the call of the ocean. The resistance to the call is one of the 12 stages, and it's not a bad thing. It's a part of our heroic journey. And so I thought we'd just take a moment to think about the ways that we resist and why we resist. That's all I'm going to say about my love life. I'll keep you posted. Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 14. For many are called, but few are chosen. I always hated that passage. There's something about the evangelical Christianity I grew up with that was so exclusive. Only a few get to go to heaven. According to the book of Revelation, 144,000. That doesn't seem like a very good percentage if you think about all of the souls. That was actually how I ended up leaving that fundamentalist theology, because I just crunched the numbers. And it's like, no way. No way a loving creator would make that system. But it was actually while I was still in that teaching that somebody explained what this passage, this from words of Jesus, actually means. Many are called, but few are chosen. But we are chosen by our choosing, by answering the call. Whatever life is calling for us and calling from us, if we say yes, we are chosen. We are chosen by our choice to answer the call. There is a Zen story, a parable from Zen Buddhism that I love. The parable is that a man had a baby swan that he loved so dearly, and he wanted to protect it from all harm. So he put it inside a glass bottle with a small opening. The baby could fit in there, and the glass was thick, and there was no way that any harm could come to this swan. And he fed and cared for the swan, and you know what happened? The swan grew too big for the bottle. And he was left with like a koan, a riddle. The only way to save the swan's life was to break the bottle, but the glass would kill the swan. So Mark Nepo, who's one of my favorite writers, he talked about this parable, and then he says this: too often, in an effort to protect ourselves from being hurt, we place our soft and growing heart in a clear jar of distrust, never dreaming that the heart continues, like the baby swan, to grow. Too often, we can contain our way of being within our way of surviving. I think I need to read that line again. We can contain our way of being within our way of surviving. This is how we can wall in our own hearts over time. And even the most unassuming and cautious of beings can find themselves having to break their hearts, their way of feeling in the world, in order to free themselves of their hardened, clear resolve. But many of us simply live with the hardness. If we can call such a constraint living. With such suffocation of heart in mind, Rachel Naomi Remen wisely asks, is it possible to live so defensively that you never get to live at all? I know that was a long reading, but boy, it just hit me between the eyes this week. That we are so afraid of losing what we have. We have such a high need for safety and security. We're so afraid of what we don't know. And the truth is, you know nothing about the future. It could change the moment you leave this building today in a way you had no idea. But we think we can control, and so we stay trapped. We stay in our tight little jar of our own comfort zone, really. I guess that's the best way to say it. And you've heard that phrase too, that life begins at the end of your comfort zone. That if we are to answer the call to adventure, we're going to have to face our resistance to that call, and it's usually around our need for safety and predictability. We're going to have to venture into places we've never been before. And this is all metaphor. I don't want anybody moving away from this church. We need you here, so. Unless, as it often happens, and our ministers will attest, that people do get the call. They start doing these practices and this work, and something expands, and they move off somewhere else. I just say we tithe them to the universe. That's what happens. And you all are the new ones are the benefits of that. That's how we got paid back. And I got some feedback from one of our longtime members. He said, "You're not selling this New Thought stuff very well. You're talking about how hard it is all the time." So let me just say, I want to balance this kind of deep metaphor of the challenges of life being part of our becoming with the good stuff. We do get to dream big dreams and see those dreams realized by using these principles. We do get to see a bigger life in vision and step by step see it revealed in us, through us, as us. It happens. I mean, my life is so much bigger, so much more amazing and fulfilling than I had any idea was possible. And I did it using the principles we teach here. And I had to do the hard work too. Sometimes we get this idea that we'll just put it on a vision board and it happens. No pain, no gain, no muss, no fuss. Here's what I want, there it is, done. How many of you have ever experienced that? Anyone? You have? Just done and one and done? No. Do you know why? The person who created that vision board was not the person who could deliver it. The person who answers the call is not the person who fulfills the call. Because you need the journey to become the person who can fulfill the vision. And you're going to have to walk through all bits of resistance, every false belief. There's an old metaphysical teaching that it's in Emily Cady's book, Lessons in Truth. It's called chemicalization. Some of you know that. She wrote this in the 1890s. And the idea is this, that when we set an intention, we answer the call to a bigger life, we step into something greater than we know that we know is ours, every belief that is unlike that will rise up in our face. The metaphysical Bible interpretation of this is the chariots and the horsemen from Egypt when we're at the edge of the Red Sea. There's something in this that says, are you sure? Are you sure? Don't you want to go back to Egypt? Yeah, you were enslaved, but they fed you there. That was what it was reported that the people said. But something is calling us to a deeper life. And so we just have to say yes without knowing how we're going to do it. We don't have this. We don't have the skills. We don't have the abilities. We don't have the wise and trusted mentors and friends that come along the hero's journey. We don't have any of that yet. We just have to step into it. And that other stuff just begins to come. My friend Melinda Wood-Allen, she's preaching in Dallas this morning. She has a New Thought church. She's actually affiliating with Unity. Her church has been independent for a long time, but they're becoming a Unity community. And she says she prays for pop-up people all the time. Pop-up people on the path. People that have knowledge I don't have. People that have experience I don't have. I've just been to pray. And you know what? They do. They just show up. I'll be talking about one thing and a friend of mine says, I went through that a few years ago. Here's what I did. I called this person. That's exactly how I found this editor. I was talking to my friend Kim King. It's like, I know I need to write a book, and I've got all this material. I don't know what to do, and I've been told that I need a development editor. She said, well, you should call my friend Jean Carroll. And I did. She's a pop-up person on my path. But I had to be willing to take the step to begin to write and to begin to talk about it, and then something happened, and it will continue to happen. And I've been writing a long time, but now I'm becoming a writer. I'm getting equipped to do some new thing that is calling to me. I call this is my final point, and I call this, God equips the called. Have you ever heard that? God does not call the equipped. God equips the called. Do you get it? And if you don't like the word God, don't use it. It's fine. It doesn't care. But some force of life itself. I love the force in Star Wars. That may be my favorite image for God ever. Something that is all around us and within us that is impelling us into our own evolution and growth and becoming. It is calling us forward. And it knows we don't know how to use that lightsaber yet. It knows that. And it will bring what we need into alignment. I've got to bring this thing to a close. We are not equipped when we answer the call. Exactly. That's right. I resisted my call to ministry hugely for years because I knew I didn't have what it took, and I was right. But I kept moving forward, and through some difficulties and through some, sometimes we grow through joy. Absolutely, we do. And amazing people that have come to help me on the journey. In 2006, I was just on the cusp of I'd already said I would start taking classes in ministerial school, but I didn't, I don't know. I was in New York. I'd reconciled with a former partner who was living there, and I was spending time in Dallas and in New York, and I'm a little kid from Avan, Oklahoma. My mom tells this story that when I was about 6, we were watching some movie on TV, and she said that I turned to the family and I just said, what I want is to be on a street of a big city where there are 1 million people around me and I don't know any of them and none of them know me. Because I grew up in a small town where everybody knew my business. And so I love big cities, and I spent a lot of time in New York. And I remember there was a Saturday, I was going up on the Upper West Side to see a friend's new apartment. And this was before we had maps on our phones. And I knew the train to take, and I took the subway uptown and had coffee with her. And then I was meeting another friend in the Lower East Side, and I knew how to do that and where to take the shuttle at Grand Central Station. I knew all of that. And I was like, as I was getting on the train to take me to the Lower East Side, I thought, look at me, little Avan, Oklahoma boy, knowing how to navigate New York City. And I was at a choice point. Either I was going to move to New York and probably pursue music full time, and my partner was well off, and he was going to let me do whatever I wanted to do. But I felt this other call, and it was about these teachings, and it was about communities like ours, and it was a lot scarier. But I made that decision on that train in New York that day. And ever since then, it has been the most fulfilling and challenging journey of my life, and I love it. I love what I get to do now. And this is where I was going to talk about the Hegelian dialectic, and we're out of time. It's real simple. Hegel was a German philosopher who said that evolution comes in 3 stages. It can be cultures, it can be humanity itself, but thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The easy way to think about it is in the Victorian era, there was a huge shame around sexuality, and so they even put skirts so you wouldn't see the legs of the chair. I mean, they were really into that prudish, and it didn't work. So then what came out of that was sort of the swinging 60s, the sexual liberty and all of that, and that was the antithesis. And then somebody said that what we have now is a place where if you want to have a traditional monogamous marriage, great, do that. If you want to explore something, there's space in our culture to do more. That's the synthesis. There's freedom in that for all. 6,000 years ago, we believed that human cultures were matriarchal. There was a feminine ethos about giving, belonging, supporting. That was the structure of human culture. And then it's thought as cultures grew and competition for resources and crowding became an issue, conquering. The masculine ethos entered. And this teaching is sort of a masculine approach. I want to say that. But what I think we're being asked to do is come up with a synthesis of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. We don't need the matriarchy to be placed back in top. We need each of us to be able to now weave together the divine feminine, the divine masculine in our own lives, and that will heal our culture. Because what I think we're seeing right now with the breakdowns, it's the toxic masculine culture that we're seeing. And we need the divine feminine in us, in men and in women, to come forward. We have a greater care for one another, a greater sense of mutual responsibility for others in our world. And I believe that I saw one teacher on this. He said, we can build a clean factory next to a park. That right there. Isn't that a beautiful idea of the masculine and the feminine? We're not going to get rid of all the factories. We like our stuff. But we need to be caring for the earth too. Last week, we gave the Marilyn Huggins Leadership Award to Stephanie Foy and to Cindy Wolfram for their leadership. I think these 2 women, if you weren't here, watch the video. It was amazing. They did all the preliminary research, along with Reverend Mindy Lawrence, to create our Unity in the Community I think we're in the synthesis of this divine masculine and divine feminine right here at Unity of Houston right now. That we want to empower people to take that journey and claim what is theirs in terms of their good in this life, and we also want to be a part of a healing journey for others, those who need right around us. So today, we have a very special guest, Mike Nichols. His work has been about how we can support one another in huge and profound and practical ways. He's going to be coming after the service. I invite you to come over to the Pyramid, have lunch with us. It's a $10 love offering, but come even if you don't have the $10 and just hear how we can be a part of this next stage of our evolution as we balance the heart and the head here at Unity. That's going to be it for my talk. I just want to say we're only beginning the journey, so everything I didn't get to say, I'll say next week. How's that? But I know that there is something calling us individually and collectively. I encourage us all just to say yes. If no one has told you today that they love you, I love you. God bless you.
For watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.